Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Talking Football podcast. I'm absolutely delighted to say we're joined this week by a legend of Notts County, the record goal scorer, also starred for the likes of Wigan, Stockport, Rotherham, and not forgetting as well Bristol Rovers. It's the one and only Les Brad. Les, thank you very much for coming on.
Good morning, and thank you very much for inviting me. It's an absolute pleasure. Done quite a few meetings on the internet over the lockdown, and enjoyed quite a lot of those meetings. I've been introduced and spoken to a lot of very vulnerable people, and it's given me a lot of satisfaction.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to, before we look back at the career, Les, how has the coronavirus affected yourself? Are you keeping safe and well throughout it?
Yeah, it's helped me with an aim that I set out to do back in February, and that was to lose weight. So it's given me a little bit more time, and I've been making sure that I get my 10k steps in a day. Don't do that all at once. The trip to the paper shop that used to be a bike is now a 2-mile walk. At lunchtime, I'll go out for probably 3/4 of an hour walk, and then of an evening. And I've been doing around 350 to 400,000 steps each month, and that's delighted me, really. One sad point has been lack of golf over the last 3 weeks, because 2 rounds of golf a week has certainly helped took me to achieve that. I've got into a routine of getting up and doing a few body exercises. So I've lost a bit of fat around the tummy at the side as well. And the pubs being closed has stopped me drinking a few pints that maybe I would have done if everything had been okay.
Cracking stuff.
Still with an interest in football. I'm an ambassador for Notts County currently, and I do quite a bit of work in talking to supporters, greeting them on match days, ground tours, and I've had a lot of satisfaction. I've probably done around 200 calls during the summer to disadvantaged supporters, sufferers, shall we say, with the dementia that's high in the discussions now with football, and people that have got a common interest, with Notts County before my time, and we've had some really good discussions. So it's been a good help, not just to the person that I've been calling, but also myself.
Yeah, absolutely. The career then, Les, a fantastic career in football, of course. When you were born back in November 1947, when you were growing up, did you always want to be a footballer? Was that always the dream?
I was born in the wilds of Derbyshire. The nearest thing to football was probably 26 miles to Stockport or Manchester, and in the opposite direction, 30 miles to Derby. and coaching was never heard of that word as a boy growing up. It was basically go to school and the teacher saying, right, we're having a football lesson today. You play number 2, you play number 11, you go in goal. So I was playing virtually every position on a football field. And when I moved into secondary school, then I became the captain. My father had some experience of semi-professional football when he lived in London, played for Grays Athletic. And I think it was his interest in football that got me into it. But sort of growing up, through my, shall we say, 8, 9s, 10s, 11s, 12s, very little football on TV. I couldn't wait for the weekly comic coming round, and Roy of the Rovers, Roy Race doing his little bit, sticking it in the top corner, banging it in from 25 yards. And having read the comic, I ran outside, got the football, and went in the garden. There was something at the garden shed, heading it up against the wall. And also look forward to the after-school games that took place on the local park, which was about a mile from where I lived. And I used to travel there and join in the games that probably started at 3 or 4 aside for the first ones there, and finished at probably 20-a-side when it was going dark and parents were calling the kids to come in.
Yeah.
So that was my sort of background in football. And I left school at 15, became an apprentice motor mechanic. And they wouldn't let me have Saturday afternoons off to play football. In those days, that was the only time that there was any football. There was no Sunday morning in those days. And I missed it badly. Then got asked with a friend if I would like to join this local amateur football team. And if so, they would sort me out with another job. And that's what I did. That local football team was called Earl Sterndale, who that season we went on to win the league, and I scored, I think, 35 goals playing on the left wing.
Wow.
And yeah, towards the end of the season, I got a tap on the shoulder from this chap at half time at a place called Chinley. He said that he was a friend of the manager of Rotherham United, would like to go for a trial. I was 18 then. And I couldn't wait to go. And the first game was the youth team game up at Barnsley. And I wore the number 9 shirt. We drew 1-1. I scored the goal. And from that point on, it was an upgrade into the reserves. First game I played was against Don Masson's team. Don was playing Middlesbrough.
Yeah.
And I learned to play against some very big, strong centre halves. In those days, football was a lot more physical than it was today, and you had to have your wits about you. But during that year, I scored 9 goals from 11 run-outs with the reserves, and I got offered a full-time contract in 1967 by the Rotherham manager. He said, "You're very raw. We need to do a lot of work with you, but I've got a good feeling that you're going to make it as a footballer." 1 month later, he left and went to the United States, and I was a little bit out of it. But that was the launch to my career, really.
Yeah, you mentioned the coaches. Was it Jack Mansell? Was that the boss at the time? Of course, he would manage, like you say, go to the States, but he'd manage a whole host of different countries all over the globe, Galatasaray as well, and you name it. What was he like as a coach, Les?
Jack was a fantastic coach, and he bragged about being the fastest sprinter backwards. I think in his playing career, he was a left back for Portsmouth, and he did a lot of tracking back, and he got I think he used to train running backwards because in those days wingers ran at you with the ball. But he was a very, very good coach. He coached a young set of guys at Rotherham into a very, very good football team. So much so that in that year, that 1966-67, they drew Manchester United in the 3rd round of the FA Cup. I wasn't in the team, but they played them at Millmoor in the first game and drew 2-2. And Manchester United got a late equaliser. They lost the replay by, I think it was an odd goal, but they were a team. There's some very good players who went on to big things that came from that team.
Yeah, you mentioned Millmoor. Of course, it's still there. It's a bit strange why it's just been left there, hasn't it? Well, the New York Stadium is just close by. What was it like to play there?
It was a strange ground, really. Right by the railway station, you entered the ground at the back of the goal, and you walked along a set of steps, and then down some steps, and then along the pathway, which was part of the terracing, and then you joined onto the main stand, went up some steps, and along there, and down some more steps, and then you finished up in the far corner, which was the dressing room. That's where the tunnel used to be coming out from the corner. Yeah. It had a slope to the pitch. I don't think it really mattered too much to me in those days. I was just a youngster that was cutting my teeth, starting out in football. So I was just over the moon to be at a football club. It was in the days of the 60s when music was massive. You know, the Beatles were very prominent, and all sorts of other four-piece bands. You know, two guitarists, a drummer.
Yeah.
They were on the go, and for some reason, Rotherham United attached themselves to the Kinks, and their music was played in heavy volume as the players went onto the pitch. And I can remember Hold Tight being played as we went out, and the players, as you looked at them, they all had a ball, flicking it up and down, doing the tricks with it. It was just wonderful to be around.
Yeah, sounds like a fun place to be. And of course, is it right in thinking you scored once for the senior team, and it would come against the club you would join, Notts County? Is that right?
Yeah, I had 3 appearances for Rotherham. I made my debut at Villa Park.
Wow.
We got beat that day 3-1. I scored, but had it disallowed. The next game, as it is nowadays, after the first match of the season, was Football League Cup week.
Yeah.
And Rotherham were drawn against Notts County at Meadow Lane. And marking me that day was Dave Watson, who went on to play for Sunderland and Manchester City and England, of course. And I managed to turn him from a throw-in and thump the ball in from nearly 30 yards. It was an unbelievable goal. And we won the game 1-0. I was in the team because the centre-forward for Rotherham was recovering from a cartilage operation in the summer. His name was John Galley, and he was fit virtually just after that. I managed to play another game against Derby County when Roy McFarlane made his debut for Derby County. And then John was back in the team and I was back into the reserves. I'd had a taste of first team football and the crowds and the noise that went with it. And I arrived for a reserve team match on Tuesday night at Millmore, and to be pulled on one side by the caretaker manager, Fred Green, to say that Notts County were very interested in signing me. The manager, Billy Gray, had been in contact with the club. Was I interested in going? So I asked him what the situation was with myself at Rotherham, and he said he didn't think that I got much chance of playing first team football with all the players that were there. And he thought I ought to sign for Notts County. So I said that I would like to speak to them. The manager and the chairman came over that evening, and I signed on the dotted line. There were no mobile phones in those days, so I went outside, found a call box, rang my mum and dad in Buxton, and they weren't very happy at all. That I'd gone from a second division club to a fourth division club. But I'd made that decision, and the next day I drove over to Nottingham, and I made Nottingham my home, and it's been my home since then.
Yeah, it certainly has. Joining them, did you get much? I guess, it would be obvious you would play more often for Notts County than you get the chance at Rotherham, and it must have been great to play on a consistent basis, Les.
Yeah, I was met at Notts County with a captain. His name was Alex Gibson, and he stood outside the door waiting for me, and he shook hands, nearly broke my hand. And then he says, "You're going to wear a black and white shirt, my lad." He was probably about 8 years older than me. And he says, "The rules to wear that shirt are that you wear it with pride, that when you get kicked, and you will get kicked in this league, that you get up again and you stare at the centre half in the face and said, 'You haven't hurt me.' You smile at him. And when you come off the pitch after 90 minutes, you've left nothing out there." And still sticks in my mind now. So, yeah, I went out on the pitch and tried to give it the best that I could. Not just scoring goals, helping my teammates. The manager, Billy Gray, had an eye for a player. We had a lot of good young players in there, but he expected them just to go out and be able to perform. And it wasn't until 18 months later a guy called Jimmy Cyril moved in to take over at Notts County that certainly in my case, and I believe in a lot of the others as well, that we became educated on what being a professional footballer was all about.
Yeah.
And he did that by every Tuesday and every Thursday we had a full-scale practice match, and he was on that field and he was working with the players in the first team, and he was telling them what he expected them to do. And it took a few months, but eventually we gelled together. We took on board what he'd had to say, and we became a team that initially had started winning at home and not conceding goals, and then we're able to go away from home and pick up draws and then win matches. And probably a strange thing to say when I tell people about being a professional footballer, they find it difficult to understand, and it's applicable to each position. And in my case, what he demanded from me was that I had to be of value to that football team in and around that penalty box. I had to cause issues for the defenders of the opposition. I had to have them worrying about me, looking for me. I had to be able to set up chances and score goals. Anything outside of that area would take, but it wasn't of great importance to him. And working on the pitch with other players, watching how fullbacks delivered the ball forward. You know, we had a fullback called Bob Worthington.
Yeah. Playing
with him on a regular basis, I got to find out when he was going to kick the ball, it wasn't going to come in the air like a balloon. It was going to come viciously swinging in at you. The other side, the fullback Bill Brinley, he couldn't kick the ball like that, as it was going to be a higher delivery. So you pulled off to one and you went in the back of the other one. And in a lot of cases, that people watching football, unless they really fully understand what is going on out there, they'll say, he looks slow. He doesn't look interested. And I've never known in my time any player playing in the same team going on that pitch that isn't interested. Sometimes the mind isn't quite on the same wavelength as other people, and then they lose a yard because of it. And they are the issues. But as I say, Jimmy Cyril educated us into understanding the position that you were playing, and I feel that the years that followed through the 70s, where we had 2 promotions while I was there, and then another one after I left, up into the top level, were down to that education.
Yeah, and of course, top players you mentioned would arrive at the club, one being Don Masson in 1968. What was he like to play alongside Les?
Well, if you switch on the television and watch a Premiership football match now, you will watch midfielders probably playing more like a stone wall.
Yeah,
the ball gets knocked up to him from a full-back position or centre half, and the midfielder knocks it back again, or he knocked it square. Don Masson never ever took a ball that he played back or square.
Yeah.
Whenever he was calling for the ball, taking the ball, he knew what he was going to be doing. And when there was 3 or 4 options on, he generally picked the best option. He passed the ball inside the fullback or over the fullback's head for the wide players, wingers in those days, to run onto. We got 2 fast wingers throughout those days. They had to get on the end of that ball. They had to cross the ball into the box. He also played the ball up to the strikers, and he would get it back with a view for changing play. He had fantastic technique with both left foot, right foot, control of the ball. And that just didn't come naturally. He worked after the training session finished. He would go out onto the pitch. He would practice free kicks. He would practice corners. he was an utter enthusiast to get better. And he's probably one of the best players that I played with or ever saw in my career that played in that position. Quite often get the question, who's the best player you ever played with? And I don't think that you can answer that question quite correctly. There's a best player for every position, because Don Masson couldn't have played centre half, if you understand what I'm talking about. But he played that position that the best I've ever seen.
Yeah. Tony Haley would come back to the club as well. When you were there, Les, speaking to Don a couple of weeks ago, he said that it was attracted 20,000 fans to the fourth division. What was it like to play alongside him, and what was he like as a character to share a dressing room with?
Tony was an absolutely fantastic guy, and he was probably one of the best headers of a ball that I've ever seen. He could get up in the air, and he could hang up in the air. I've seen centre halves jumping with him, and they're coming down while he was still up there. Yeah. But he got taught, and I got taught by a fantastic teacher whose name was Tommy Lawton. Don't know if you remember that name. He played for Arsenal, for Chelsea, Notts County, Brentford, England, and he scored probably 200 goals in 300 odd games. He was fantastic. On Wednesday afternoons, he took me, and Tony said he'd done the same with him, into a little room and down the corner of the stand, and we would stand on blankets stacked about a foot high. And we had to crouch down as low as we could with a piece of chalk in our hand and jump as high as we could and put the chalk mark on the wall. And we'd do that for about 10 minutes. And then the following week, you went back in and you couldn't come out of the room until you beat the previous week's chalk mark. So that's probably why we got big thighs. So he also taught us how to exercise our neck muscles in thrusting back and thrusting forward, to the left, to the right. He taught us where the correct place to head the ball was, and that was in the middle of the forehead, not on the top of the head. And certainly Tony was top of the tree when it came to that. So playing with him on his second time round at Notts County, it was an absolute education. I roomed with him at all the away matches. We played off each other. In fact, there was one season playing with Tony, became the only season when I wasn't the far post man. Yeah. Tony was on the far post. I played off him, and that was the season I got my best tally of goals. I think I got 23 goals that year. But I like to think we were a handful. We, as I say, from these practice games that we had, one attacked the near post, one the far post. We were always at great danger, and if it came to the near post, we had a go at goal. Generally we scored, or could flick it onto the far post. If it came to the far post, we generally headed it back to one of us at the other side of the goal, or laid it back to Don Masson. We worked with each other, dropping off the ball, one running in the back. He was just a great guy to play with and work with. And his son Mark became a fantastic player as well, who scored many goals.
Yeah, he certainly did. The 70-71 season was a memorable one, wasn't it? When you got out of that fourth division, unbeaten at home. I think you scored 21 goals as well, Les, so a successful season that year.
That's 50 years ago. Where's time gone? Yeah. We were into the second season of Jimmy Cyril, and after just a slow start, we got onto a run. We felt like we weren't going to concede any goals, lots of clean sheets, and talking to the defenders, the two centre halves, Dave Need and Stubbsy, in those days, they always used to say once we got a goal, we felt that was it, and in many cases it was. And yeah, we went on a great run, and we just didn't feel that we could get beat. We were a great bunch of lads, knew what we were all doing on the pitch. We we were good off the field as well. You know, if anybody was required to attend a pub for a charity issue, it wasn't one player or two players going on a rota basis. It was like all the team went. It was a fantastic time. Not just to be playing football, it was a great time in life as well. The 70s, the late 60s, the 70s were great times to be living.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned there the sort of team spirit and what have you. But was that something that Jimmy Cyril really got the players together and galvanised the squad and got you all singing from the same hymn sheet? Did you have a lot of fun off the field as well as on it?
He had his favourites, but the success of Notts County was built on the back of being a team. There was no individuals in there. I think some people might like to think that there were individuals, but pull one out, there was another one waiting to take your place, and it was built on the back of a good team ethic, and hence the reason why we're so successful on the pitch, off the pitch. We're a wonderful group, and looking through the records probably a few weeks ago, and you're looking at players. I think there was 8 players in that team made over 40 appearances.
Yeah.
And in the 3 years where we had 2 promotions, as I say, this season, 50 years ago, we missed out the next season on promotion, then got the promotion up into the old second division the year after that. I think something like 17, 18 players used over that period of time.
Yeah. Incredible.
You know, and you look at squads needed today. You know, we're talking about times when there was only one sub, the 12th man, and he generally only went on when there was an injury. It wasn't a tactical substitution, you know, through there. 40-odd games being played in the league, you know. Then there was the cup games, and I'm picking up the paper, and the Premier League are crying out that they need more subs, and I'm thinking, what was happening? And we're playing on pitches that were
bowling green
covered in mud, that were bone hard with no grass on in the spring. I don't know.
Yes, it's
different game today.
Game now, isn't it?
It's a completely different game today, and big changes to the physical side of it. I'm pretty sure that the players are much more athletes than they were in my day. Not sure if it's a better spectacle. Mind you, I'm biased because we played in those days, and I think the lads that played then will say it was a better game than it is today. But I found it a lot more exciting. And, you know, when you watch the old games from that era, they were games that sort of got you out your seat to watch. I find today's top football more like a chessboard. It's become a very, very much tactical game. I don't know if you agree.
No, I would agree with you there. And not just that, there's so much football on now that it's almost at a saturation point. I cover the games when I go to them, but I don't normally bother watching it on TV much because there's so much on. I mean, every day. So, and like you say, it is very much the same sort of stuff, and it's almost the smaller teams don't get much of a chance now as they did back in obviously the days that you were playing, Les.
Yeah, no, the Sunday morning highlights is the best program now. Yeah. But even so, there's more time taken up on VAR than anything else on that.
Don't get me started on that. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, you know, throughout the days that my playing days, you know, we were brought up, the referee's decision was final.
Yeah.
And the good referees would sometimes talk to you and put the hand up and say, I made a mistake, and you got on with it. You know, just like players made mistakes, and the players accepted that as long as they were honest and they hadn't been swayed by the crowd. And we got on with it, and I'm sure it was far better to watch than what it is now with this constant VAR interruption.
Yeah, it's terrible, and it's comical now what they're denying goals for and what have you. It's really taken over. We're just talking about VAR now as opposed to the football, which isn't what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah, and you're looking at a centimetre being offside, and it's part of the arm, and
yeah,
do they know at the exact time that the ball is leaving the boot to determine that centimetre? I just find it all.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, and I think, the players and the coaches feel the same way, so hopefully it gets addressed sooner rather than later. Talking about yourself, Les, you mentioned there the pitches. You'll struggle to find a really bad pitch these days, but back then there were quagmire, some of the pitches you were playing at. Was there anyone in particular that you dreaded going to, or that you had a tough afternoon at?
I don't know about dreading going to. You couldn't wait for a match day to be playing, because we felt like we were going to win, so that's good. I suppose if it's the other way and you're losing every match, it might be different, but during my career it was pretty good and successful. That one pitch miles above any other that sticks out in my mind is the baseball ground. And the day that we played there was the FA Cup third round, and we got beat. We got smashed actually 6-0. We'd had a good first half. We were losing 1-0 at half time. Tony Aitley should have scored actually, so we could have been drawing there. But that pitch, and I'm talking all over the pitch, the mud, and it was soft mud, and it came over your boot. It was just like running on a quagmire. I've never known anything like that before. Also, probably Newport County comes to mind. In those days, it was also being used as a speedway track, and the corner flags were mats. They were at the corners of the speedway, and there were mats marked out with the quadrangle. I can remember there we were winning 1-0 late on, and our centre forward, this was 1968-69, Jack Smith, he took it over there, lifted the mat up and put the ball on the joined in the last couple of minutes to waste time. The pictures have changed, and I must say that is a massive improvement in the game to where they are now.
Yeah, I was going to ask as well, playing in front of the home supporters at Meadow Lane as well. How good was that for you? How much did you enjoy playing in front of them?
I feel very, very sorry for the players playing in the pandemic, because football without supporters is a no-go for me. To run out of that tunnel at Meadow Lane, in the 70s, we were always playing with 10,000 plus gates. And I had a group that used to get behind me on the far side of the ground. That was a County Road stand. And when we came out, they used to sing this song, 6'2", Eyes of Blue, Leslie Bradders After You. And I always ran over, and we got on with each other. And it's just wonderful to score a goal, to get the adrenaline buzz, and then to see the fans cheering with you just goes hand in hand. I've been down to matches this season, and to see a goal being scored without any celebration, you're looking around to see, you think it's been disallowed. It's just. I suppose it's better than not seeing it at all, but I'm sorry, it just isn't. It's not football for me.
Yeah, it's a bizarre state of affairs. But you've played against Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, in the 70s, we got promoted. Was it 73-4? We moved up into the second division.
Yeah.
Forest had come down, and they were in the second division also. And this was our big chance to match up against the big boys. And we were there for 4 years, playing against each other. We lost that very first game. And then we were quite successful with the other 7. We never lost another one. I think we drew 3 and won 4. And I did well. I scored one of them was a winning goal in the last minute at the City Ground. That was fantastic. Also scored again over there. And I also scored. I've got quite a story to this one. This was one at Meadow Lane, and it was the year that Forest got promoted.
Yeah.
And I can't remember. It was probably March time. We were both very high up in the league, pushing for promotion, and we got to know each other quite well, the players of each team. And one of the players, Larry Lloyd, was, I won't say a close mate, but he was a mate of mine. We would have a pint on occasions. And we played at Meadow Lane, and the game kicked off. And as you did, the centre forward moves forward and comes up against the centre half. And Larry put his studs on top of my boot, looked me in the eye, and he says, "If you effing score today, I'm going to break your effing leg." I said, "I thought we were mates." And I scored after about 15 minutes. We went 1-0 up. And then probably half an hour of the game gone, and I'm approaching this ball, and out the corner of my eye I could see this red shirt come flying. And as I put my foot for the ball, this long sliding tackle, and the foot hits me, and I'm laid out in agony. And I looked up, and Larry Lloyd's over the top of me looking down. "What do they effing well tell you?" And I got stretchered off.
Wow.
But, yeah. Later he became my manager when I went to Wigan. We went a little bit deeper into that story, but no, it was quite a battle out there. Football, you had to look after yourself, but there were happy times, good times.
Yeah, there certainly would be. It'd be a brilliant occasion to play football against your arch rivals. In terms of your time at County, of course, you'd spend a good many years there. Was there any chance that you may have left before your time there, Les? Did you have any opportunities, any clubs sniffing about because you were doing so well?
In those days, when you signed a contract, you were under the ownership of the club till they wanted to get rid of you. If your contract finished and you didn't accept the new contract that was on offer, then you stayed on your old contract, getting paid the old money.
Yeah.
If you said, "Well, I'm not going to do that," then you could go off somewhere else to work, but not play football.
Wow.
So if there's such a thing as a pendulum, it was too heavily on one side.
Yeah.
Maybe it's gone too heavy the other side now.
I think so, yeah.
That's how it was in those days. And you heard little whispers, you saw things in the paper. I know that after Jimmy Searle left and went to manage Sheffield United and Ronnie Fenton took over as manager, he told me that Don Howe, the manager of West Brom, had offered 105,000 to Notts County to sign me the previous year, which had been turned down. I also heard of Coventry City wanted to sign me. They were in the top league then. And another one that I did hear was when I left Notts County and signed for Stockport County, Mike Summerby was the manager.
Yeah.
And he told me, oh dear, what was his boss's name at Manchester City? It just escapes me now. Can you remember?
At Man City?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not sure. When would this have been? What year would this have been?
Oh, you're going back in the 70s. Can't think of his name now. He was assistant manager at Manchester City, and then manager of Manchester City. He'd advised Mike somebody to come and sign me, and he said that he was looking. He'd been looking at me as well a couple of years previous to then. So yeah, there were some clubs around. I didn't get the opportunity. I was never asked by the manager, did I want to go? But as I say, I did hear from the manager of Notts County, Ronnie Fenton, that a bid of 105,000 had been turned down for me in 74-75 time.
Yeah. Is it one of those? Do you look? You're one of these guys, maybe Les, that looks back and go, oh, well, what could have been, or do you not bother so much about that? It's just that's how things operated back then.
Yeah, that's how things operate. No point looking back. I do lie in bed sometimes you think back and think, well, wonder what had happened if I'd have gone there and I'd been playing with him. And but it's very interesting, isn't it? I'm one that believes in fate. There's somebody up there that's looking down that controls us. We might think we control ourselves, but there's other things going on as well that steer you in directions that hidden source, shall we say. Yeah. So you take what you've got. I look back on my life and think, from where I was born and bred and my younger days, nobody had ever been a professional footballer from Buxton prior to me. John Higgins' son, John, was born in Bakewell. His son Mark became a professional footballer afterwards, played for Everton. But no, I think from where I came from, I'm over the moon with how football has treated me and the life that I've had working in football since then.
Yeah, and of course, Notts County, you're inducted into the Hall of Fame there. You're an ambassador there as well. So it must be quite humbling to know that you've made such a big impact at that football club and you're held in such high regard.
Yeah, that didn't just come from the football side. I worked for Notts County in the commercial sense from when I retired when I was 36, and I had 11 very happy years there. Then I moved over to Nottingham Forest and worked on their commercial side for another 12 years. That didn't go down well with a lot of friends, I can tell you that. And then sort of when I retired at the end of my career, I've been an ambassador for Notts County Football Club. So as you can imagine, I've met many people in Nottingham. I've got heavily attached over the last 7 or 8 years with the Notts County charity. I've done a lot of work with the shall we say, the disadvantaged people. Yeah. I've worked with Vicky McClure with the dementia choir, yeah. And she's been helping me with helping, shall we say, supporters who've got dementia, how we can link sport into helping those as well. So I've done quite a lot. I've also been responsible with the launch of the Former Players Association, with the Junior Magpies. So I've done quite a lot of work that's got me heavily involved, and I think that's probably a lot to do with that award, which I greatly appreciate.
Yeah, of course, you'd leave in 1978 after 11 seasons with the club. Were you sad to leave at that point, Les, or did you feel that? What was the reason for you moving to Stockport County?
Well, Jimmy Cyril had come back as manager, and they'd sacked the manager Ronnie Fenton. Jimmy took over. We were struggling down at the bottom of the old second division, and we had a successful run. We got ourselves halfway up the table. I scored 12 goals that season. Season ended. Jimmy went off like he normally did, and over to Malta for his summer holidays. And I got a call, could I meet the chairman of Notts County down at the club? And I thought, yeah, that's not a problem. I thought he's going to offer me a rise. He called me into his office and sit down, and he said, there are 4 clubs that want to sign you. And that was Hull City, Oldham Athletic, Shrewsbury Town, Stockport County. He says, I've talked to them all. I've done a deal with them all. You're free to go and speak to them all. I think you should leave. I know you've got a contract left for 1 more year, but I've just signed Ricky Green from Chesterfield, and he's going to be your replacement. I would hate to see you playing in the reserves for the rest of your time. Yeah. Wow. and I was rocked. And that was how quick the conversation was. The slip of paper handed over, how to walk. I went home, made myself a cup of tea, cried, and thought, wow, that's 11 years gone just like that. I could have stayed 9. So after 10 minutes, I went out for a walk and took a breath of fresh air and got my head in gear. And then deep down, I wanted to sign for Stockport because my father had only passed away a couple of years previous. My mum was living on her own in a place called Buxton. Yeah. Buxton was sort of halfway between Nottingham and Stockport. And everything fell into place, really, with discussions with the manager, Mike Summerby, and Freddie Pye, the owner. And they signed a 1-year contract. They wanted me to sign for 2 years. And I said, no, just 1. They couldn't understand why. And I said, basically, if you're not happy with me and I'm not happy with you, we can get out after a year.
Yeah.
I won Player of the Year. And had a really good season. I got called in by the chairman, who offered me a 2-year contract, which I gladly signed. He could work for both of us. So that was the reason that I moved to Stockport. But I was very upset at the time for losing, finishing at Notts.
I guess you never got the opportunity to say goodbye to the fans or what have you. It was just one of those, see you later, and that's you finished.
That was a big thing when I was having my cup of tea with that time on my own, thinking, bang, all those players that are in that dressing room that we're seeing on a daily basis, gone, boom. All those supporters that have cheered me through all those days, no more. And it's quite an impact, really, when you think about it. But you can either let it affect your life or you close the door and move on. Another one opens and do something about it. And that's what I tried to do. I tried to tell the chairman in my own way that it was wrong, saying that I was getting too old. To say I was leading goal scorer at Stockport, won Player of the Year. 3 years later, I moved to Wigan and did the same thing there. Always trying to prove people wrong and get on with things. So that was what I did. I'm proud to have done that.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, at Stockport, Mike Summerby was there, like you said. How good was he to start alongside? Was George Armstrong as well? Ex-Arsenal was there, wasn't he?
Yeah, we had Mike Edwards, who was Manchester United centre half as well. There was a group of players who'd been around other clubs, and Mike was picking them up and assembling them. We didn't quite gel. We certainly gelled as a team when we played the better teams. We played Arsenal in the cup. We were drawing a long time, 1 each with Arsenal, but finished up losing the game. We went to Old Trafford in the League Cup. We were winning there till late on, and we felt we got cheated there by the referee. Lost to an injury time winner. So we could play against, shall we say, better teams, but found it difficult against, shall we say, the rough and ready teams that were prepared to get stuck in. So we didn't have a plan B. And we became a bit middle of the road at that level. And Freddie got impatient with Mike Summerby, and he brought in a new manager. By that time, I think Freddie was getting a little bit fed up with Stockport, and he sold up and moved on to Wigan Athletic. It was happy times. Enjoyed playing with Stockport County. We had some wonderful games, great memories there, a big part of my football career. Really enjoyed it, as was Wigan, of course, afterwards.
Yeah, am I right in thinking you netted your only hat trick at Stockport? Is that right? Am I reading that right? Was it against Barnsley or something like that?
Yeah, it's not the only one. I got one at Wigan as well.
Yeah.
I think it was two. The one at Stockport, we were losing 4-1 with 8 minutes to go, and in fact, my memory's going now. He was a centre half at Barnsley, Ipswich manager, Ireland
Oh,
manager.
Mick McCarthy.
Mick McCarthy. He was a young lad, and he got plenty of mouth on him in those days, Mick. And he was giving it to me at Stockport. They beat us at Stockport, and we went up to Barnsley, and I scored the first goal was I ran through the middle and hit it from about 20, 25 yards. It flew into the corner, and then got too late headers. I even hit the crossbar in the 9 seconds for a winner. That year, George Armstrong was over on the left wing.
Yeah.
It was a great draw for each. It was late in the season that year. I was voted in the PFA Team of the Year, and we went down to London for the awards. I was in the 4th Division Team of the Year, and sitting on that table was the Barnsley manager, Alan Clark, when we used to play for Leeds.
Yes.
And he was telling me about that game where he got them all the Barnsley lads in the next morning, 2 hours running up and down the Kop. Whenever I bump into Mick, I haven't seen him for a couple of years now, but occasionally I used to bump into him down at Notts County. He always used to, whenever he greeted me, it was usually with some bad language. But we'd always have a laugh about that game. Yeah, and the other hat trick was for Wigan Athletic at Scunthorpe. We beat Scunthorpe 7-2, I think it was. Making his debut for Scunthorpe that evening was Botham.
Oh yeah, Ian Botham, yeah.
Ian Botham, and he scored a goal.
Was he any good? Because of course I interviewed I think Neil Poynton a year ago, and he says he was a cracking player.
Yeah, he was a big, strong lad, a bustly type player, and he scored a good goal up there, but we were a bit too good for them that night.
Yeah. So the move to Wigan then, the club had recently just obviously made it into the Football League. How was your time there? Did you enjoy your time up there, Les?
Yeah, well, Larry Lloyd was the manager, and he still lived in Nottingham, and he taught me into signing, that we could travel together. Incidentally, the meeting to sign was the last match of the previous season, Wigan Athletic versus Stockport County. I'm playing for Stockport County. Larry is playing for Wigan Athletic, player manager. And during it was the last match of the season. I'd been told by the manager of Stockport that I wasn't being re-signed. And during the course of this game, Larry chatted me up into signing for Wigan. We talked money during the course of the game as well. And at the end of the game, when we shook hands, people thought shaking hands on the game. It was shaking hands on a deal to sign for Wigan.
I've never known a deal would be conducted on the field before.
Yeah. No, I went up to Wigan. My first day up there, I drove up and pulled up in Wigan and asked where the ground was, and drove up there and finished up on the directions at Central Park. It was a rugby ground.
Yes.
So the rugby was everything in those days.
Yeah.
Wigan was just a small club, but we did really well. As I say, there's some name players playing in the team, and we had a great run. During that season, we beat Chelsea as well in a League Cup 4-1, 4-2. We narrowly got beat with Aston Villa. I think it was 2-1. So yeah, we had some good games, and there was some big crowds came to watch us as well, and it was great feeling to get promotion with Wigan.
Yeah, you certainly love a promotion, Les. And I mean, you scored again, was it 19 league goals that season? So I guess, like you say, you're just wanting to prove people wrong that they were wrong at the time of letting you go for Notts County, that you can still do the business, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I think it was about, life was about proving people wrong. I know my workmates when I was at work back in Buxton, but I don't sign on for, you'll never make it as a player. And then I became a player. I'd been turned down by Buxton. The local team said I wasn't good enough. You know, I think it was all about, I'm going to prove them wrong. You know what I mean? And I wanted to do that. And I think, yeah, I had a decent career at Notts County, played with some great people like Don. And then I had to prove Notts County wrong for letting me go, and then Stockport, and yeah, it was good. And even at the end of the career, I went to play for Bristol Rovers, and in fact, I was in the Guinness Book of Records at one time. I don't know whether it still is there. I was the only player to score on the debut and never play for the club again. We played on New Year's Day at Cardiff, and I scored a goal in a 2-1 defeat. Did my hamstring. I'd gone on a month's loan from Wigan, and I spent the rest of the month trying to get fit again. And it was just about right. Bobby Gould was the manager at Bristol Rovers in those days, and he said, "I'll sign you till the end of the season if you prove your fitness in this reserve team game." And it was against Reading, and I'd scored 2 goals, and then it went completely with 20 minutes to go, and that was it. I went back to Wigan, didn't play again, really. That was it. That was the end of my career.
Yeah. Touching on Wigan, Springfield Park, it would have been at the time. What was it like playing there?
Lovely place to go and play. The ground, obviously, a lot of the older generation of Wigan supporters will remember it very fondly. There was parts of the terracing at the back of the goal was grass, and when it got wet, you could see people would slip down to the front. Yeah, it was an old-fashioned stadium, but it suited the purpose. It was adequate for the size of the crowd in those days, and it produced good atmosphere. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, and then, like you say, the injury sort of put paid to your career. But did you miss a lot of players say that they missed the sort of dressing room camaraderie and all that sort of stuff. Les, did that take you a while to get over?
Well, I ended my career at the age of 36. I did have an offer to go and sign for a year at Mansfield Town, but I felt my body had had enough. My brain was still good and knew what needed to be done, but injuries were coming a little bit more frequently and taking longer to get over. So I decided to call it a day. Looking back, people say, "Stop me in the street now," or "I bet you miss it. I bet you wish you were playing." And not really, but I do miss that dressing room. That was a fantastic place to be, to wake up in the morning, have your breakfast, and then get down into that dressing room. The banter, the taking the mickey out of each other, being able to take it, get it back, and wonderful times. Then on the training ground, the physicalness against each other, and then the chat afterwards, and just wonderful. That is probably more than anything else what I miss from football.
Yeah. Did you look at going into the coaching side of things, Les, once you stopped the playing?
At Stockport County, when they sacked the manager, I was put in caretaker charge with Trevor Porteous at Stockport, and I was asked to pick the team. I was slightly injured at the time, so I wasn't playing, and so we worked through the week and on lots of different things. And then for the first time in my football career, I'm acting as a caretaker manager, assistant, and I'm the other side of the touchline, and I'm watching what's going on, and I'm thinking, we haven't been working at that. We haven't been working at that. How do I change that? And I thought to myself, this isn't for me. I think I might have made a good assistant manager, but to be a top manager, I think requires somebody a little bit different thinking than the norm.
Yeah.
And then I look at all the managers that I've been in contact with, they've got something a bit different. I didn't work under Brian Clough, but I did get to know him a little, and I found he was a little bit different. Jimmy Cyril certainly was different to a lot of people. Yeah. And it was basically how Neil Warnock, I'm not saying he's massively different, but his coaching is all about improving a player.
Yeah.
That player might have a level, he wants to get them better than what they are.
Yeah.
It's not about top players, it's about improving the player.
Yeah.
And if he can get a slight improvement, he feels he's done well. Eventually, at some stage, he might have to make a decision. I can't improve that guy anymore, and I have to change him. Yeah. But they're a little. It's not just about on the training park and on the pitch. It's something a little bit more that's needed to me. So I don't think I was cut out for that role.
And before we let you go, Les, is there any goal that stands out during your career that you hold in higher regard? You think that was an absolute beauty that you scored?
In my testimonial year at Notts County, I had to pick out my top 10 goals, and looking at those goals, there's goals in there for different reasons. That last minute goal at the City Ground was a header from 2 or 3 yards. Nothing fantastic, but it won the game with a minute to go against the rivals that were always above us for so many years, and we become the top team in the city around that time. That was a top one. That very first goal in my career that I smacked in from 25 to 30 yards.
Yeah.
Another goal against Walsall was nearly 40 yards, where I just turned and thumped it, and it just dipped under the crossbar. So, yeah, certain goals for certain things, but my education was not about myself and scoring goals. It was about the team and winning. I got more satisfaction when we come off with a win, because it had helped my wage packet, because in the days that I'm talking about, appearance money, win and draw bonuses were massively important. So that was a big difference. Yeah. But that burst of adrenaline scoring a goal, there's nothing quite like it. And I can understand why certain players became alcoholics there. Probably drink needed to fill in that void after their careers. But no, it was a fantastic time for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been absolutely fantastic having you on, Les. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
I've enjoyed it too. Thank you very much for asking me.